When will Dawson Mercer sign his new deal, and what's taking him so long? And also, let's talk about a Predators prospect that wants out of the organization. We have a lot to break down in today's episode of Locked On Devils. Buckle up, everybody.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Scores! Oh, Steven stepped up, nailed it. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, college hockey play announcer, Devils Rider for Pucks and Pitchforks, and also part-time credential media member, Trey Matthews. Let's discuss a couple of topics that I thought I wouldn't have to talk about in late August. The first being a contract for a current New Jersey Devils player, or lack thereof. Then let's talk about a silly season discussion involving a Nashville Predators prospect that wants out of the organization. And to close it all off, let's talk about the future for the Devils in terms of their goaltending, because time is of the essence. That's the old saying, right? All right, let's talk about this current New Jersey Devils player who still does not have a contract. And I jokingly said in the previous episode that we're probably going to get GTA 6 before this player signs a new deal, and that is Dawson Mercer. All joking aside, the reason why I haven't really been talking about this subject is because I'm not really concerned. I don't see any red flags or cause for confusion involving Dawson Mercer and his new deal. As we all know, he's a restricted free agent, and that's been one of the biggest talking points throughout the course of the summer. What will Dawson Mercer's deal look like? Is it going to be like a long-term deal? Will it be a bridge deal, as in he'll just sign a 1 or 2 year extension? What's going on? Well, courtesy of Christy Flannery of the Hockey News, she spoke to Pat Brisson, who represents Dawson Mercer. He said, "We have had many conversations and we will continue to speak here this week." That was posted on August 19th. It is August 21st when this episode goes live. And like I said, as I'm editing this episode, or before this episode goes live at around 6 a.m. Eastern time, a lot can happen. However, I was away on vacation for a couple weeks and nothing took place. But getting back on track, like I said moments ago, I have no fear whatsoever that something's going to go wrong with Dawson Mercer. But people rightfully have been asking the question, why is it taking this long for a potential new deal to come into fruition? Because like I said, we're in late August, and if you were to tell me back in June that this would still be ongoing, I wouldn't have believed you, but here we are. I really don't have an answer for that sort of circumstance, but if I had to make an educated guess, and just full disclosure, I have no insider information on this matter. This is just me putting 2 and 2 together. How does that old saying go? The way to predict future behavior is relevant past behavior. What do I mean by that? Well, my educated guess is that Dawson Mercer is looking for a bridge deal, because this past season for Mercer, it wasn't his best performance compared to his other 2 years in the NHL. The only thing that really stayed consistent was the amount of games he played in. And I talked about it earlier in the summer. He had career lows in a lot of categories. But the one thing I cannot take away from Mercer is that he is the Iron Man for this Devils team, because 3 years in the NHL, he has never missed a game. But it still doesn't take away from the fact that his productivity kind of took a step backwards. And what happened to another player that was on the Devils roster that was in need of a new deal, but the front office and also this player decided to come to an agreement for a 1 year extension before the arbitration hearing was to take place? That is Jesper Bratt. As we all know, back in summer 2022, that was one of the main talking points throughout the course of those few months. What was Jesper Bratt's contract going to look like? And there was also some rumors going around that he had signed an 8-year extension, but that was proven not to be the case. And months, weeks were going by, and Jesper Bratt still did not have a new deal. And Devils fans were sitting on pins and needles because, like I said, this was about to go to the arbitration hearing. Luckily, 1-year extension. And that sort of gave Jesper Bratt one shot to prove to the front office that he deserved a bit of a pay increase, because he wanted to showcase to everyone that he wasn't just a one-hit wonder. He is capable of putting up big-time performances. 2021-2022 season, Jesper Bratt suited up in 76 games, and he had 73 points. 2022-2023, when he signed that 1-year extension, he appeared in all 82 games, and he also had 73 points. And then once he signed his 8-year, $63 million deal, which has a cap hit of $7.88 million, Jesper Bratt appeared in his first All-Star game, and he was a point-per-game player. He appeared in 82 games, and he capped off the season with 83 points. Once again, Jesper Bratt used the 2022-2023 season, that historic run that the Devils had, to prove to the front office that he deserved a richer contract, and he got paid. But I think it's safe to say that Fitzgerald pounced on the opportunity the best way he could, because, like I said, as soon as he signed that 8-year deal, once the ink dried the following season, Jesper Bratt appeared in his first All-Star game. But that's sort of what had to happen before Jesper Bratt was locked up long-term. That's what I think Mercer is setting his sights on, which is, yes, he had career lows all across the board, but maybe he wants to sign a 1 or a 2-year extension, so that way he could prove to the front office that he has a lot of untapped potential and he could take his game to new heights. So that way, down the line, he could possibly get a fatter deal. But I think Fitzy, on the other side of that, already sees the potential in Dawson Mercer, knows that he has untapped potential, and sort of wants to do the same thing that he did with Jack Hughes, because Jack Hughes' contract is 8 years, $64 million, which has been voted as one of the best contracts in the NHL, given Jack Hughes' ceiling, and I don't think he's even close to reaching it. And we just saw Matty Beniers of the Seattle Kraken just sign, a 7-year deal worth $7 million annually. And Matty Beniers, he didn't really have a good year this past season after he won the Calder Trophy during the 2022-2023 season. But I think the Kraken organization knows that Matty Beniers, he is the real deal. And I think Fitzy already sees that in Mercer and is like, look, just sign a long-term deal, because what is Fitzy notoriously known for doing? He knows how to make a good investment in terms of contracts, with the exception of Andre Palat. Don't come at me. I made sure to acknowledge that, but digressing a little bit, look at someone like Timo Meier's deal. Meier signed an 8-year, $70.4 million extension. That's 8.8 annually. And Timo Meier, 40 goal scorers who have his type of body frame, they don't just grow on trees. That was a very smart investment by Fitzy, because Timo could have gotten anywhere from 9 to 12 million annually, according to NHL Network, because that's how valuable Timo Meier is. Fitzy knows how to make a good investment. And I just used 2 examples, Jack Hughes and Timo Meier, and he might want to do the same thing with Dawson Mercer, which is why I guess both sides are at an impasse. And let me make this a point of emphasis. I'm not saying that Fitzy wants to re-sign Dawson Mercer to an 8-year extension. It could be 3 or 4 years, or maybe Mercer wants 1 to 2 years. But at the end of the day, Fitzgerald has said that it's going to come down to money, average annual value, because here's the reality of it. Luke Hughes is going to need a new contract come the end of this season. He is entering the last year of his entry-level deal, and that boy is going to get paid. You have to factor that in as well. You're going to have to retain some other assets, bring in some new talent. Let's assume that the Devils are going to be buyers at the deadline. Who's going to be that new said player coming onto the roster? What does their contract look like? There's so many moving pieces, which is why I guess I can understand from a different perspective as to why this might be taking so long, but just some food for thought. Fitzy has come out to say during one of his summer press conferences that Mercer is in fact a part of the long-term plan here in New Jersey. Like I said, that is pure speculation on my end, but that's my educated guess. You just need a quick recap. Dawson Mercer probably wants a bridge deal, maybe anywhere from 1 to 2 years, and Fitzy probably wants to sign him to a long-term deal, but at a cheap value, so that way he doesn't have to worry about it a couple of years from now. Just speculating, putting 2 and 2 together, and just my educated guess on how things have shaped up in the past for Fitzy. But what would that contract look like? That's the big question that a lot of people have been asking themselves. Well, according to my buddy Neil Villapiano of Devil State of Mind podcast, and also my teammate over at Pucks and Pitchforks, he wrote an article about a week ago, and he said that Mercer is projected to get 2 years at $3.8 million annual value on a short-term deal, which is, in my opinion, a good deal for the Devils because, once again, you get him at a discount, and it also gives Mercer a chance to showcase his skills. But like I said, can't confirm or deny that. All right, we're going to talk about a silly season discussion involving a Predators prospect. But before we continue, let me tell you guys about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the price you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Okay, let's transition to Yaroslav Askarov. Try saying that name 10 times fast. It was reported by Kevin Weeks that Askarov will not report to the Nashville Predators AHL affiliate, the Milwaukee Admirals, and has requested a trade. And a lot of people are trying to jump on the Askarov bandwagon because he is a good goalie. Let's make something perfectly clear. This past season with the Milwaukee Admirals, he appeared in 44 games, had a goals against average of 2.39, a save percentage of .911, 6 shutouts, and he had a win-loss record of 30, 13, and 1. The playoffs, a bit of a struggle for him. He appeared in 5 playoff contests. He had a goals against average of 3.25, a save percentage of .882, and he had a win-loss record of 2-3. He was given a cup of coffee at the NHL for the Predators just this past season. He appeared in 2 games. He had a goals against average of 1.47 and a save percentage of .943, and he had a win-loss record of 1-0. So he has shown some promise. But why does Askarov want out of Nashville? Well, I was basically watching some videos on YouTube. I was doing my research, looking at some articles, and basically here's the conclusion that a lot of people have drawn up. As we all know, UC Saros, he saw his name in trade discussions, and I was one of the first to say that I don't think Saros is going to be dealt away. It doesn't really make that much sense, and he has filled in the shoes that were left by Pekka Rinne quite nicely, if you ask me. I didn't see why the Predators would trade him away, and as a result, he got a big contract. And I think Askarov wants to get to the NHL as quick as he possibly can, and with a playoff caliber team like the Nashville Predators, who went big game hunting during the offseason. They landed players like Jonathan Marchessault and longtime Lightning captain Steven Stamkos. you know that the Predators' goal is to make a deep playoff push, and Askarov probably wants to go to a team that's not really up to par to the Predators, so that way he can be given an opportunity to get to the NHL and see some consistent playing time. And I read you Askarov's stats, and they are nice, and I think the Predators are definitely going to ask for a decent package, rightfully so. But of course, I saw some people on social media saying that the Devils should pursue Askarov. Is it possible? Well, according to James Nichols of New Jersey Hockey Now, he put out an X and said, reached out to a source on whether or not the Devils would be players for Askarov. He said he didn't get a yes, but he didn't get a no. And he later explained why it's unlikely. I will leave a link in the description if you want to check out James's thoughts on the matter. Let me share you my thoughts. I do agree with James. It seems highly unlikely that the Devils will land Askarov for a few reasons. One, it's just like, what would you have to give up in order to get his services? That's always my biggest question when assessing trades. And I said it during the course of the offseason. There aren't that many good caliber goalies out there, and the price is always going to be somewhat high unless contract situations come into play. That's why the Devils got Jacob Markstrom on a cheap deal, because he's getting up there in age. He only has this season and next season remaining on his deal. People don't really know how much time he has left in the NHL. And I think the Flames, they knew that they couldn't keep him either way. So they got Kevin Ball, and they also retained about 31% of his salary. And that's why I said I think the Devils actually did quite nice for themselves, because they got themselves a pretty decent goalie and they didn't have to break the bank. But for Askarov, who is a highly touted prospect and a former first-round selection, the asking price might be somewhat compelling, but I do need to keep myself honest. Askarov is still a prospect, but he has shown glimpses of brilliance while at the NHL. We'll see how his career shapes up. And also, another thing that I saw on social media, and something I agree with, is the timing just doesn't work out. I literally just said that Askarov wants time at the NHL, which is why he doesn't want to play for Nashville, because he's probably run out of patience and actually wants to see some consistent minutes at the NHL level. And for the Devils, you have Jacob Markstrom. He signed for this season and next season. Jake Allen is signed for this season. I don't think the Predators are going to accept a deal involving Jake Allen, because they already have a backup in Scott Wedgwood. And that's also something I want to mention. I was watching an episode of Locked On Predators, and my colleagues, Ann Kimmel and Emma Lingen, they were talking about it. And the thing about Askarov, he is still somewhat unproven, because he has appeared in a few NHL games, and he has not gone a Calder Cup run while playing for the Admirals of the AHL without losing his starter's net. Just putting that out there. I'm not saying that he's not going to amount to anything, but that's something you also have to consider, which is Askarov is still unproven, but Jake Allen is proven. Now, is Askarov's ceiling higher? You can make the argument and say yes. But for the time being, the Devils don't need another player with little NHL experience backing up Jacob Markstrom. It just doesn't really make sense if you want to be a championship caliber roster. That might work out in terms of investment, or if the Devils were rebuilding. But since the Devils are contending, you need players that are already established at the NHL level. Once again, I can't reiterate this enough. You can make the argument and say that Askarov's ceiling is higher than Allen's, but Allen so far is more proven at the NHL level. And the Devils already have a goalie that needs to marinate just a tad bit longer in the AHL, and that's Nico Daws. And we already saw what Nico Daws is capable of doing, and that kid was recovering from hip surgery nonetheless. I think Nico Daws also has a high ceiling. So my final verdict is yes. I think Askarov is a great player, and I think any team would be lucky to have him. But in terms of him coming to the Devils, it seems highly unlikely. James Nichols touched on it in his recent article, and also worth mentioning that Nichols reached out to someone in New Jersey if maybe the Devils will throw their name into the hat for Askarov, and Nichols got a no comment response. Something tells me that it's just wishful thinking, and I think it's best to assume that Askarov will not end up with the Devils organization. Once again, I'm not trying to discredit Askarov. I'm not trying to say he won't amount to anything. I'm just saying for the time being, he's unproven. He's still relatively young, and I don't know what the Devils would have to give up in order to get his services, and I don't think Jake Allen will be enough to entice the Predators. That is my final conclusion, and let's not ignore the fact that the Devils have some decent players in their respective goalie pipeline as well. We'll talk about that momentarily, but before we continue, let me tell you about Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, messaging, so that way you can connect with candidates faster. I've actually used Indeed before to book myself some play-by-play gigs. I absolutely love it, and I highly recommend it. Listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs for more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support my show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Okay, I said going into the break that the Devils also have some decent options in their pipeline. Now, Akira Schmid is no longer in the picture. He is with the Vegas Golden Knights. But are people forgetting that the Devils selected Mikhail Yegorov in this year's NHL draft? How did they get him? Remember, the Devils conducted a trade with the Utah Hockey Club and sent away John Marino. In exchange, they got a second-round pick, and they selected Yegorov from the Omaha Lancers. Why do I mention Yegorov? Well, I didn't really have the chance to break down his game because day 2 of the NHL draft was hectic. I was pressed for time. They were kicking people out. But Yegorov, while playing for the Omaha Lancers, I know nothing seems eye-popping. He appeared in 43 games. He had a goals against average of 3.86 and a save percentage of .892. But my draft expert, Joseph Stanislav, a.k.a. Jersey Joe, one of my other teammates at Pucks and Pitchforks, informed me that the Omaha Lancers really gave Yegorov the business in net, meaning they overworked him and he had no support in front of him. Remember, I said it doesn't matter if you have a good goalie in net. If you don't have a good team in front of them, their good efforts could go to waste. And the thing about Yegorov, he was actually the number 1 ranked goalie in North America. And I said it at day 2 of the draft that I think the Devils got a steal in this case. And he's actually committed to play at Boston University this upcoming season with former Stanley Cup champion with the Devils, Jay Pandolfo. Just putting that out there. And here's the scouting report on Yegorov. As a bigger goaltender, Yegorov's approach is a simple one. He keeps his routes around the crease short, and he sets his feet quickly to give himself the best chance possible to track the puck. He seals the ice well when he drops into the butterfly and makes a lot of saves on quick developing opportunities by simply filling space with his giant frame. He stands 6'5" and he weighs 187 pounds. And he's from Russia, similar to another player that the Devils drafted on day 1, and that is Anton Salayev. And Salayev is a couple inches taller than Yegorov, and they're both from Russia. But nonetheless, Yegorov, in my opinion, is still someone that people shouldn't overlook. And I know Askarov is a hot topic around the NHL community, but I don't really see the Devils including themselves in that sort of trade circumstance. I think the Devils will stick to what they got, and I'm seeing teams like the Blackhawks, Sharks. I think the Hurricanes, I'm not sure what their goalie situation is looking like, but I've seen their names float around a little bit as well. But the Blackhawks and Sharks, that makes perfect sense. Both of them not really going anywhere anytime soon. They probably need all the help they can get. And I think Askarov would rather just wait to play for a Stanley Cup or a playoff caliber roster and just try to get his name established in the NHL. But let me know what you guys think. What do you think about Dawson Mercer's contract situation? Do you think the Devils should be buyers for Askarov? Do you think they're going to get their names in the sweepstakes? And also, let me know what you think about the future in terms of goaltending for New Jersey. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on podcast streaming service, hit me up on my personal X page app at TreyMatt4 or the show's X page app at Locked On Devils. As for today's episode, that's all the time I have for you. Continue to stay safe. Have a wonderful day in New Jersey. Go Devils. I'll catch you guys next episode. Thanks for listening once again.